Guys, you know around here we love the GH6. I think it's a fantastic camera. I've done a ton of videos on it, but obviously with the G9 II and the S5 II, their fancy new autofocus and new features, some people think that this camera is falling behind a little bit, but honestly, there's still one thing that I think the GH6 does better than any other Lumix camera that I've used, and honestly, it's not even close. So that one thing with the GH6 that I noticed right away and still think beats every other Lumix camera is the color. It's accurate for pretty much everything, but for some reason, especially the skin tones are just incredible on this camera. And it's like this both for a sort of tweaked natural profile I use for weddings, or my favorite picture profile vlog. I slap on my free nicest LUT or fashion low contrast LUT from the free VariCam pack. Also using film convert quite a bit on a lot of different projects depending on the needs, and it just looks so good right away. And I think the color science behind the GH6 is one of the big reasons. By the way, affiliate link for film convert in the comments, gives you some discount, helps the channel out, appreciate it. I never do stuff like this, oh well. So yeah, like I said, I noticed this right away when I got the GH6, that the color was just a huge step up from the GH5 and GH5S. Even the S5 original, I liked the colors better. So the first time I noticed this was kind of intercutting the GH5 and the GH6. Now, obviously I knew the GH5 was gonna be different, you know, even if it was just because of the dynamic range or the full vlog versus the vlog L that camera had. But even then, the colors on the GH5 always had a little bit of a green kind of thing going on. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like some old Sony cameras or some new Sony cameras, but it was not bad. But seeing it up against the GH6 definitely made me realize just how far the color science had come with Lumix cameras. Next, let's take a look at some of the footage from my GH6 and GH5S comparison video. So I do like the GH5S colors a lot. I think they are super nice, and I actually really love the sort of magenta kind of leaning in skin tones. I mean, I think it's better than green, that's for sure. And I always really liked the GH5S's colors and dynamic range and everything. But seeing just like the warm, healthy skin tones pop out, especially when I was the subject who am not a very warm or I'm pale. But you know, even with my complexion, the skin tones being really healthy and deep and rich and looking really nice, I was just blown away by this color science in the vlog profile as well. When you look at the S5 II and the S5 and even the G9 II, I think has really similar color science to the S5 II. They all sort of inhabit more of a neutral sort of color space, I suppose. With the natural, with the vlog, I find that they always are a little bit more desaturated, which means they might be just a little bit more flexible or definitely a little bit more accurate to life, I suppose. But accurate doesn't always mean pleasing, and I don't think the GH6 is not accurate. It just somehow, for some reason, boosts those skin tones in a way that's super, super nice. So yeah, I don't know, maybe they decided that, you know, that we could always boost the skin tones or the saturation in post. I'm not sure why the GH6 alone is the only camera with this really, really good colors and color science. Every other one is good. I even love the GH5. I could shoot with the GH5 all day long, but I still kind of wish that the colors of the GH6 would be introduced to these new cameras, because they really do feel like what people talk about when they talk about like Canon color science, especially with the film convert or the nicest LUTs and the VariCam LUTs I use. And again, I know I talked about natural before, but pretty much everything I've talked about applies to every profile, in my opinion. At least every profile I've used. This is great if you're using the GH6 as your main camera, or you know, you have a lot of GH6s, but if you're mixing cameras like me, this might be a little strange because you're gonna either have to tweak the white balance or the saturation, depending on the profile, if you want it to match right out of camera. There is some downsides to this too. If you have a bunch of GH6s, you're good to go. But if you have some older cameras, some newer cameras, some full frame stuff, this just means you're gonna have to either tweak the profiles really specifically. Like I know my natural profile on the S5 II that I'm shooting with right now looks very different than the natural profile on the GH6, because when I turned the saturation down that low on the S5 II, it was so much flatter and I just needed a little bit more. I also find the white balance sometimes there's a slight disparity between the GH6 and the other cameras. So the GH6 being, out of the ordinary for color science definitely has an impact on matching your cameras, even within the Lumix brand, but it's not really a huge deal. Either just tweak the profiles or more likely do it in editing if you're doing your own editing. I don't always edit my own footage, so I try to make them as close as possible in camera as well. And like I said, if you shoot mostly Vlog or HLG, you can use something like Cinematch, and that just makes it incredibly easy. And it's actually one way to give all of your Lumix cameras basically the GH6 Vlog, at least in terms of color. So that's pretty cool. Probably gonna do a bigger video on Cinematch pretty soon. So yeah, while the GH5S may have a little bit of a low light edge, or the S5, S5 II has better low light and image quality, S5 II GH9 has better autofocus, they're newer cameras. They've got a little bit of a niche benefit here and there, but in general, the GH6 is still very, very good. And also when it comes to the color and skin tones, I really don't think you can get better on the Lumix system. Although obviously none of it's bad. But anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by for kind of a hopefully shorter video. We'll see how much I rambled in the end. And yeah, as always, if you like what's going on here, like, comment, subscribe, let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I actually did a whole video, by the way, on stuff that the GH6 does better than the G9, so check that out here if you are not sure about those things because you haven't watched the video yet. Wow, what a terrible pitch. Go watch it anyway, though. Or don't. I have 2 coffees. Doesn't this look nice? Oh, my whole hand's covering it. Yum. Bum, 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 bum.